In the distant year of 3129, Earth appeared to be one of the quietest and weakest planets in the known galaxy. Floating calmly in the vastness of space, the blue world had no colonies across the stars, no mighty warships cruising through distant systems, and no grand armies marching under banners of conquest. It was known instead for its polite diplomats, peaceful culture, and soft presence in the massive and often brutal politics of the galaxy. Among the powerful empires and species that made up the Galactic Union, Earth was treated like a harmless actor on a great stage, allowed to trade simple goods, but never invited to real power or important decisions. Time and again, other species would mock it, insult it, or even attack its property. Alien raiders occasionally sabotaged Earth's satellites or stole from its merchant ships, and Earth's leaders would always respond the same way, with apologies, payments, and soft words. Never once did Earth retaliate with force. Never once did it raise its voice. Over time, the galaxy began to laugh behind Earth's back. It was called the stage planet, not because it hosted performances, but because the humans seemed to be playing a part, pretending to be something they were not. The part they played was one of kindness, weakness, and endless patience. Most alien leaders believed it completely. But far beneath the surface of Earth, deep under the ice-capped peaks of the Himalayas, there was a hidden truth. Buried beyond the reach of scanners, satellites, and spies, a secret base lay carved into the ancient stone. It had no name spoken aloud, no signs or maps. Those who knew of it simply called it the core. And inside the core, the true leaders of Earth met in silence. They did not wear medals or sit in parliaments. They were not presidents or kings, nor were they generals in shining uniforms. They were something else, something older, colder, and far more calculated. They were known only as the Mask. This group had watched over Earth's destiny for centuries, guiding its growth, studying the stars, and preparing for the moment the galaxy's judgment would fall upon their world. They had built weapons that no one had seen, stored knowledge no one suspected, and shaped plans that stretched across generations. One evening, under the low red lights of the core, a small gathering took place. At the head of the long stone table sat an elderly woman known as Director Hannah. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes carried the calm fire of someone who had never once been caught off guard. Around her were others like her, silent, sharp-minded, dressed in black. No names were spoken, no greetings were needed. They all knew why they were there. Director Hannah placed a small crystal sphere in the center of the table. It glowed softly, with shifting blue lights, showing intercepted transmissions from across the stars. In those messages, Earth was being mocked once again. Another small attack had gone unanswered. Another insult delivered by an alien traitor who thought himself clever. The room remained silent for a long time, until Hannah finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but heavy. "We've played our part long. Enough." Another figure nodded slowly, tapping a fingertip on the table's surface. "They think we have no teeth," the figure said, voice low and thoughtful. A third added, "Let them laugh. Let them believe we're just actors in a play." "But when the line is crossed," Hannah interrupted with a quiet smile, "we drop the act." And those words hung in the air like a quiet storm waiting to break. Above their heads, Earth continued to spin in peace. Cities glowed with life, unaware of the ancient machine humming deep beneath the mountains. Children went to school. Workers moved through streets. Farmers harvested crops on Martian test colonies. Nowhere on the planet did ordinary people suspect that Earth was not what it appeared to be. Not even Earth's own military knew the full truth. They believed in Earth's peaceful image, and they believed that the galaxy had simply outgrown war. That belief was carefully planted. It was part of the act. The real weapons were not in orbit. The real ships were not floating above cities. They were hidden where no telescope could find them, buried in asteroid fields and folded into layers. of reality that few understood. They were made not just of steel and fire, but of secrets, silence, and science so advanced it felt like myth. Earth had not been ignoring the galaxy's threats. It had been studying them. Every attack had been recorded. Every insult was measured. Every enemy was profiled. The mask had watched and waited, always calm, always still, until the moment. The mask would be removed, and so, while the galaxy laughed at the blue planet that never fought back, while they called it soft, backward, and broken, Earth continued to prepare. Not for revenge, and not for glory. It prepared for survival, and for the day the galaxy made one mistake too many. The day it would believe Earth was truly helpless and try to crush it completely. That day had not yet come. But in the shadows of the core, among the quiet voices of Earth's true rulers, one thing had already been decided. When that day came, the act would end, the mask would fall, and the galaxy would finally see what Earth really was. Without warning, the skies above Earth shifted from calm to chaos. A vast fleet of alien warships, each shaped like a monstrous creature from nightmares, descended from the edge of space like falling shadows. These were the Drakari, an ancient warrior race feared across the stars for their brutal ways and endless hunger for domination. Their ships, covered in bone-like armor and glowing with red plasma veins, moved in formation like predators circling easy prey. The assault began immediately. No message, no demand, no mercy. Within minutes, Earth's orbital defense satellites were reduced to dust, and communication relays were burned from the sky. Cities across the globe watched helplessly as fire rained down, not from the heavens of legend, but from cold machines controlled by beings who saw Earth as nothing more than a target on a long list. The Drakari had decided that Earth's time of pretending was over. They would now make it a slave world, stripped of freedom and choice, ruled by force. And with each strike, they believed their dominance was being sealed. Their leader, commander, Vorgash, known across the galaxy as the Dominator, sat proudly upon his high command throne aboard his flagship, smiling as his warships unleashed destruction upon the blue planet. His voice, deep and cruel, echoed through interstellar channels in a message broadcast to every major galactic power. The humans are ours now. They will serve or burn. It was not a warning. It was a statement of fact, a declaration of conquest. Across the galaxy, silence followed the broadcast. No one stepped in to stop the Drakari. Not one of the great alien empires dared to intervene. In fact, many welcomed the news. For centuries, the galaxy had seen Earth as a strange, weak, and often annoying participant in trade and diplomacy. Its peaceful ways and harmless mannerisms had earned it little respect. Now, with the Drakari doing what many others had only dreamed of, a quiet satisfaction spread among the powerful. Some sent private congratulations. Others simply watched with interest, waiting to see how long Earth would last before its governments collapsed. Even Earth's so-called allies turned their backs, offering no aid, no protest, no defense. Earth stood alone, surrounded and under fire. Panic spread quickly across its cities. Sirens screamed in the skies above New Shanghai, Nairobi, and Lunar. Prime. People ran to underground shelters, clutching children and holding hands, unsure whether their home would survive the next hour. Governments tried to maintain calm, but their systems had been caught off guard. No one had expected a full-scale invasion, at least not among the public or the surface-level leaders. The news channels were flooded with images of destruction, plumes of smoke rising from orbital towers, broken pieces of satellites crashing into oceans, and citizens crying out in confusion and terror. For the world, it seemed like the end had begun. But far beneath the noise, deep under the Himalayas in the hidden base known only to a few, the true leaders of Earth, the Mask, were already in motion. While the world above reacted with fear, the mask responded with purpose. They had been waiting for this moment for generations. Their plans were not written in months or years, but across centuries. Inside the core, data flowed like lightning through dark halls as ancient protocols were awakened. Weapons that had not seen daylight in 1,000 years were powered up. Ships hidden in folded space began to stir. And in the heart of the command chamber, Director Hana stood before a glowing interface, watching the Drakari fleet tear through Earth's false defenses. Her face was still, calm, but her voice carried the weight of steel when she spoke. "Now they've crossed the line," she said, and the others around her responded not with surprise, but with understanding. One by one, eyes turned to the final signal, long prepared and never before used. It was a single transmission, short and cold, sent across all known channels, encrypted and ancient in code. It read, "This is Earth's final warning. Keep attacking, and we drop the act." Across the stars, the message reached the ears of warlords, queens, emperors, and spies. Most laughed, some ignored it completely. The Drakari didn't even acknowledge it. Commander Vorgash, busy preparing his ground forces to invade Earth's surface, dismissed the message as a desperate bluff. In his mind, the humans were finished. They had no armies, no fleets, and no hope. All that remained was to crush what was left and claim victory. He did not know, nor did any of his kind, that the message was not a bluff. It was not a threat. It was a switch, one that had been waiting for centuries to be flipped. And now, with the attack fully underway and the galaxy watching with quiet amusement, the time had come. Earth would reveal what it truly was. Not a stage, not a puppet, but a storm dressed in silence. The mask was beginning to slip. And for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy would begin to question whether Earth's peace had been real or just part of a long, dangerous lie. The moment the final warning left Earth's deep command center, silence settled for exactly 37 seconds. Then, without sound or signal, things began to change, everywhere, all at once. In the asteroid belt near Jupiter, massive chunks of lifeless rock suddenly cracked open like hatching eggs, revealing sleek, pitch-black machines beneath their crusty shells. These weren't ordinary ships. They had no registration, no recognized design, and no known energy signatures. They didn't glow or hum. They whispered through space like ghosts given metal form. Further out, hidden within the folds of a spatial anomaly near Saturn's icy moon, something immense began to stir. Wrapped in layers of cloaked energy and bent light, a structure began unfolding like a mechanical lotus. A command ship older than any existing fleet, codenamed simply the Harbinger. Its hull shimmered with dark blue alloys unknown to the rest of the galaxy, pulsing faintly like a beating heart. It had slept in silence for over 500 years, held in waiting for this exact moment. One by one, from across Earth's network of secret caches, buried in moons, hidden inside comets, camouflaged deep within false mining colonies, ships and weapons activated that no one in the galaxy knew existed. They had been designed in quiet shadows, built over lifetimes by minds trained not in politics, but in survival. These machines weren't meant to win wars. They were meant to end them in moments, and they didn't scream into space announcing their launch. They simply moved, silently, with terrifying purpose. Back in orbit, the Drakari continued their attack, unaware that the stage beneath them had already been swept away. Commander Vorgash stood proudly in the center of his command bridge, arms crossed as reports of Earth's crumbling defenses rolled in. His warriors cheered with each successful bombardment, their sharp laughter echoing through the halls of the warships. But then, without warning, the forward assault vessels began to vanish. No explosions, no warnings, just gone. One moment, 12 ships covered the African and Asian zones in orbit. The next, there was empty space. Static filled the communications channels as Drakari officers barked in confusion. Their sensors showed nothing. Their scanners picked up no trace. Moments later, 3 more ships disappeared, ripped from reality, as if reality had simply decided they no longer belonged. Panic began to creep into the battle-hardened ranks. Commander Vorgash shouted commands, ordering full scans, evasive maneuvers, defensive positioning. But none of it mattered. The humans had not launched a counterattack. There were no missile trails, no laser fire, no fighter waves. Whatever was happening, it was surgical, silent, and unstoppable. Across the planet's surface, things shifted just as quickly. Above the ruined remains of the destroyed orbital platforms, clouds suddenly cracked open with a strange shimmer. Beams of light, not energy, not lasers, but something unknown, pierced down into the ground with pinpoint precision. Wherever they landed, Drakari drop pods were vaporized instantly, not burned or crushed, but unmade, reduced to particles no weapon in the galaxy could explain. The skies began to ripple like disturbed water, revealing glints of massive structures floating, just beyond the reach of visible space. They weren't there seconds before. Now they hung like silent watchers above the world, too geometrically perfect to be natural, and too still to be mistaken for anything other than Earth's true defense systems. At the same time, human ground forces, those believed to be ceremonial or symbolic, began moving with shocking efficiency. They marched not with panic, but with purpose, following orders that had been waiting in encrypted files since long before most of them were born. Armored suits activated across continents, powered by cores unknown to the galaxy's physics. Energy fields sprang up over major cities, not just shielding them, but bending time and distance around them. Earth was no longer defending. It was reconfiguring the battlefield. Inside the core, Director Hana watched everything unfold with a stillness that bordered on eerie. Around her, holograms displayed the unraveling of the Drakari fleet in real time. Her face remained unreadable, her thoughts locked behind decades of training and unspoken plans. She did not celebrate. She did not boast. This was not vengeance. This was not war. It was execution of a protocol that had been buried like a dormant god beneath the soil of Earth's history. A male voice beside her spoke softly, almost as if afraid to break the silence. They never stood a chance. Hana responded only after a pause, her voice like cold iron. They were warned. And indeed, they had been. Earth had offered. Peace had accepted insults and had pretended to be something small. But this was the consequence of mistaking silence for weakness. Now, with every passing second, the Drakari fleet was being erased, ship by ship, soldier by soldier, by machines they had never imagined, and by technologies that no one even realized Earth possessed. Far away, in the distant centers of galactic power, leaders who had once laughed at Earth now stared in open horror at the feeds. Their smug smiles vanished as entire fleets vanished from orbit around Earth without a trace. The proud empire of the Drakari, the one feared for centuries, was falling in hours. No resistance, no chance to strike back, and worst of all, no clue how it was happening. They had mocked Earth for playing weak. Now they realized Earth hadn't been playing. It had been waiting. The messages started arriving within hours. Desperate, pleading messages from worlds across the stars. Apologies. Requests for peace. Declarations of alliance. But Earth didn't respond. Not yet. It was busy. The mask hadn't fully fallen yet. But the edge of it had lifted, and beneath it, the galaxy had glimpsed something ancient and terrifying. A civilization that had never, once forgotten what true war looked like, and had simply hidden it away behind a smile. As Earth's silence lingered across the galaxy, the war between the Drakari and humanity shifted into an almost surreal dance. It was a fight not for survival, but for dominance. Earth had already given its warning. The Drakari, realizing too, late that they had underestimated their prey, were now scrambling to understand what had happened. One by one, their fleets vanished without a trace, their drop pods scattered like dust in the wind, and their once mighty flagship, the Devastator, began to shake violently. Commander Vorgash, standing on his command bridge, watched in stunned disbelief as his fleet disintegrated. His eyes, once filled with fire and the thrill of conquest, were now wide with confusion. His officers, those who had once gleefully watched Earth burn, were now at a loss for words. Around them, the silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional crackle of destroyed systems. Vorgash screamed into his comms, ordering his forces to retreat, but his voice trembled. It was clear now that no retreat could save them. The Drakari had never encountered anything like this before. No force, no strategy, no technology had ever been able to so completely erase their power. Earth wasn't just defending, it was reclaiming its power with an ease that was terrifying. They were no longer just surviving, they were obliterating their aggressors with the cold precision of a predator who had patiently waited for the right moment. A quiet revolution was taking place across the world, too. From the once fragmented and divided nations of Earth, a single unified force emerged. The global powers, who had for centuries been in a fragile balance of competition and distrust, had come together in the face of this existential threat. But now they stood not as divided governments, but as a singular collective. Earth was no longer what it had once been, a peaceful, passive player in the galactic theater. It had risen from the ashes of its own misjudgment, its people finally, realizing the magnitude of their potential. Director Hana's face remained stoic as the last of the Drakari ships disappeared from the edge of Earth's atmosphere. There were no celebrations. There was no sense of victory. The message had been made clear. Earth was not a playground for any race seeking to conquer or destroy. What the galaxy failed to realize, however, was that Earth had not been operating under its own designs. It was merely a tool for something far older, far more powerful, and far more dangerous than any could have imagined. In the deepest reaches of Earth's hidden vaults, beyond what even the mask had known, a discovery had been made centuries ago. Earth's defense systems weren't simply technological marvels, they were artifacts, relics of a long-lost civilization that had once ruled the stars. They had been dormant, waiting, like the creatures buried beneath ancient ice or forgotten sands. And now they had awakened. It was these artifacts, unknown, mysterious, and inexplicable, that had become Earth's salvation. The galaxy had thought Earth to be weak, fragile, and unimportant, a backwater planet that could be crushed without effort. But in reality, it had been a sleeper, and the galaxy had just woken it up. Far above, as the final Drakari ship disintegrated, into nothing, the Harbinger, the ancient command ship of Earth's hidden forces, shifted into view, its impossible dimensions flickering against the starry backdrop. It was a warship not meant for simple defense, but for complete annihilation. And it had just taken the first step in reclaiming Earth's place in the universe. Commander Vorgash, a shadow of his former self, looked out from the shattered remnants of his command center, and for the first time in his life, he felt fear, a fear unlike any he had ever experienced. It was the cold, gnawing realization that Earth was not just another conquered world. It was something far more terrifying. Earth wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting for the stars themselves. On Earth, the leaders who had long been kept in the shadows of their own governments were now stepping forward. The global order was changing. No longer would Earth accept being subjugated or manipulated by other galactic powers. The world had learned the hard way that its kindness was seen as weakness, its silence as ignorance. But now, no one would make that mistake again. Director Hana, her task complete, issued one final command to the galaxy, a single broadcast that would echo across the stars, making Earth's new position undeniably clear. To all who hear this, her voice was cold and unwavering. The due act is over. Earth no longer stands idle, nor will it ever again. We are not the prey you once thought us to be. Keep attacking us, and we drop the act. There is no one left to protect you from what we have become. The broadcast was brief but powerful. It reverberated across the stars, cutting through the static of galactic chatter, reaching the ears of every major power, every ruler, and every conqueror. The galaxy had been on the edge of an irreversible shift, but this message changed everything. Earth had been a shadow in the galaxy, a quiet player with nothing to show but its resources. But now it had become a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy could no longer ignore Earth, nor could it underestimate its power. With the disappearance of the Drakari threat and the sudden rise of Earth's true might, the balance of power in the universe had changed forever. Earth had shown it would no longer remain on the sidelines, playing the part of the victim. Now, it would play the part of the survivor, the avenger, and the ruler. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and the consequences were far from over. As the broadcast faded into the void, the Drakari were no more, and the galaxy now stood at the feet of a new, powerful force, one that had quietly watched, waited, and finally revealed itself for what it truly was. Earth, the once silent planet, had spoken, and no one would forget the message it had sent.